Have you ever met someone who's just too nice? That was Ethan Carter. At 34, Ethan was the guy everyone loved, the one you could always count on. He lived in a small rented apartment in Ohio, worked a stable but exhausting office job, and carried a permanent tiredness in his eyes. He smiled often, apologized even when it wasn't his fault, and said yes even when his heart was screaming no. Yes, I'll stay late. Yes, I'll cover your shift. Yes, I'll help you move. Yes, I understand. Yes, it's fine. But deep inside, it was never fine. Every single night, Ethan would collapse onto his couch, feeling completely drained, not just physically, but emotionally. His phone buzzed constantly with requests from coworkers, family, and so-called friends, and he answered every single one of them. Why? Because Ethan was terrified of one thing: disappointing people. He truly believed that saying no would make him selfish. He thought setting boundaries would make him unkind. He was convinced that his worth depended entirely on how useful he was to others. What Ethan didn't realize was that every single yes he gave to someone else was a quiet no to himself. It was a no to his own rest, a no to his own hobbies, a no to his own peace of mind. One Friday evening, there he was again, staying late at work. Not because he had to, but because a coworker didn't want to. As he finally walked out of the building, the rain was pouring down from the sky, matching the storm inside him. He sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white, just staring forward into the darkness. And for the first time in years, he cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, just silently, with tears sliding down his face, one after another. I'm exhausted, he whispered to the empty car. I'm so tired of being tired. His life wasn't falling apart in some loud, spectacular way. No, it was falling apart quietly, invisibly. His health was declining from the constant stress. His own dreams and ambitions were fading into the background. His confidence was completely gone. And the worst part of it all, no one even noticed, because Ethan always said yes, and people just assume that yes people are okay. They assume they're strong, that they can handle it. The following weekend, feeling lost, Ethan visited his Aunt Margaret. She was a retired schoolteacher known for her sharp mind and gentle wisdom. As he talked, she watched him closely. He was speaking too fast, too eager to please, too apologetic for just existing. She placed a warm cup of tea in front of him and asked softly, Ethan, when was the last time you chose yourself? Just, Frosse? The question caught him completely off guard. Hi, what do you mean? She leaned closer, her eyes full of compassion. You give away your time, your energy, your peace. You give and give and give. But tell me, who protects you? Who looks out for Ethan? Ethan had no answer. The silence in the room was deafening. Margaret sighed gently. My dear, she said, and her words would change his life forever. Kindness without boundaries is self-destruction. That single sentence hit him harder than any insult ever could. It was a truth he had been avoiding his entire life. She continued, saying no doesn't make you cruel. It makes you honest. It makes you real. And most importantly, it makes you available for the things that truly matter, starting with yourself. Those words became the first step on Ethan's long journey back to himself. A journey to learn that his value wasn't in how much he could give, but in who he was. A journey to finally learn how to say no, so he could start saying yes to his own life. If Ethan's story sounds familiar, if you're the person who's always saying yes, and honesty is the deepest form of kindness. Ethan drove home that night in silence, those words echoing in his mind. Honesty. Kindness. He'd always thought being kind meant saying yes to everything, to everyone. But his therapist's words painted a different picture. Was his constant people-pleasing actually a form of dishonesty? The thought was unsettling. He was exhausted, stretched thin, and felt like a stranger in his own life. Something had to change. The following Monday, it happened. A coworker, looking tired, approached Ethan's desk. Hey, they said with a sigh. Can you take my shift tonight? I've had such a long week. Ethan opened his mouth. The old, familiar answer was right there. waiting on his tongue. Yes, of course. It was easy. It was safe, but as he prepared to say it, his chest tightened. His hands began to tremble. His heart started racing, pounding against his ribs like it wanted out. This was the feeling of betraying himself, again. And then, something different happened. He took a deep, shaky breath. "I'm sorry," Ethan said, his voice trembling just a little. "But I can't tonight." The office suddenly felt louder. The hum of the computers, the distant chatter. His coworker blinked, clearly surprised. "Oh, okay," they said, and then they just walked away. That was it. No yelling. No dramatic confrontation. No disaster. The world didn't collapse. Ethan stood there, stunned, his heart still beating fast, but something inside him had shifted. It was a tiny crack in the dam he'd built around himself, and for the first time, a little bit of light was getting through. That night, the guilt tried to creep in, whispering its usual poison. What if they're upset? What if they think I'm selfish? What if I've ruined my reputation at work? These thoughts were old companions, but this time something else appeared alongside them. A quiet, profound sense of relief. Instead of rushing through a microwave meal, Ethan cooked a proper dinner, calmly. He didn't stay up late, worrying about the next day's demands. He slept earlier than he had in months, and when his alarm went off, he woke up without that familiar, heavy feeling of dread in the pit of his stomach. The next day, he said no again. A friend asked for a last-minute, inconvenient favor. "I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me." Then it happened again. He was asked to join a project he had no time for. "I can't commit to that right now." He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't angry. He was just respectful. To them, and more importantly, to himself. He found simple, honest phrases. "I need to prioritize my health. My plate is full at the moment." And slowly, over weeks and months, something truly remarkable began to happen. The people who only liked Ethan for what he gave, for the favors he did, for the convenience he provided, they started to drift away. Their calls became less frequent. The one-sided demands stopped. It stung a little at first, but then he realized he wasn't losing friends. He was losing users. But the people who truly respected him as a person, they stayed. In fact, their relationships got stronger. They started asking how he was doing. They celebrated his boundaries. One friend even said, "It's so good to see you taking care of yourself, man." With his newfound energy and time, Ethan started rediscovering the person he'd buried under years of obligations. He picked up the guitar he hadn't touched since college, his fingers fumbling at first, but soon finding old, familiar chords. He started hiking on weekends, breathing into fresh air, feeling his own strength return with every step. He wasn't just surviving anymore. It was living, citing no wasn't about being selfish. It was about being honest. It was about creating the space to say yes to the right things. Yes to his health. Yes to his passions. Yes to authentic relationships. It was the deepest form of kindness, not just to others, but finally, to himself. Have you ever felt completely drained, like you're running on empty, constantly saying yes to everyone and everything? Let me tell you about Ethan. He was the classic people pleaser, always putting others first, and it was costing him everything. He felt small, invisible, and utterly exhausted. His life was a series of obligations he didn't want, for people who wouldn't think twice about asking for more. One day, something snapped. Ethan decided he'd had enough. He started with small changes. He joined the gym, something he'd put off for years. He picked up his pen and started writing again, rekindling a passion he thought was long gone. Then, he did something bold. He applied for a position he once felt he wasn't good enough for. Each step was a quiet rebellion against his old self. Slowly but surely, he stopped explaining himself. He stopped apologizing for simply existing, for taking up space in the world. He stopped shrinking to make others feel more comfortable. It wasn't easy. Every time he said no, a wave of guilt would try to pull him back under, but he held firm. One evening, while walking alone under a quiet, peaceful sky, a profound realization hit him. Saying no didn't make his life smaller. It actually made it bigger. He finally understood that every no he uttered was a powerful act of protection. It was a shield for a much more important yes. A yes to his own peace. A yes to his personal growth. A yes to a future he could finally be excited about. Every time he declined an extra project he didn't have the bandwidth for, he was saying yes to a quiet evening of reading. Every time he turned down a social invitation that drained him, he was saying yes to an energizing workout at the gym. Each no was a brick. He used to build the walls of his own sanctuary, a space where he could finally breathe and be himself. Months passed, and the changes were remarkable. Ethan wasn't just surviving anymore. He was thriving. He was more focused at work, more present with the people he truly cared about, and genuinely happier. The constant hum of anxiety that had been his lifelong companion had faded into a gentle silence. One afternoon at the office, he sat across from a younger coworker who looked exactly like he used to, exhausted. The coworker sighed and admitted, "I just don't know how to say no. I feel like I'm letting everyone down." Ethan smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. He saw his past self in that young man's eyes. "I used to think that too," he said softly, "but you have to reframe it. You don't say no to hurt other people. You say no to stop hurting yourself." The words hung in the air, simple yet transformative. It wasn't about rejection. It was about self-preservation. That night, as Ethan looked at his reflection in the mirror, he saw someone new. The tired, apologetic people-pleaser was gone. In his place stood a man who respected himself, a man who understood his own worth. And that self-respect had changed everything. His relationships became more genuine because they were based on mutual respect, not one-sided sacrifice. His career flourished because he invested his energy wisely. If this story resonates with you, if you struggle to say no, listen closely. If you feel the pang of guilt every time you choose yourself, if you're terrified of losing people by setting boundaries, I want you to remember this. Saying no does not make you selfish. Your boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are the foundations of a life where you can truly flourish. The moment you stop living your life for everyone else is the moment you finally start living for yourself. It's your turn to say yes to you.